My name is Diane Walker. I'm 59, I'm a widow, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Oregon. For nearly 20 years, I've worked as an office manager at a law firm, raised two children. My daughter, Nicole, just turned 29. My son, Aaron, is 32. I've spent most of my adult life making sure they didn't have to fight as hard as I did. That's what mothers do. Right. Last Tuesday, everything changed. I got an email from Nicole, no subject line, just her name. I smiled when I saw it, thought maybe it was a sweet note, maybe a wedding update. She'd gotten engaged recently. We'd talked about the plans. I'd already sent $30,000 to help her secure the venue, book the photographer, and reserve the florist she'd dreamed about since college. But when I opened the email, the smile vanished. Mom, that's how it started. Not dear mom, just mom, like a label. Nicole explained that she and her fiancé, Daniel, had finalized the guest list for the wedding in Napa. After lots of consideration, they decided the best way for me to attend was virtually a live stream. Daniel's mom really wants to keep it intimate. She wrote, "You can watch on Google Meet. It'll be just like being there. LOL." I stared at the screen. My coffee got cold. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. Something inside me shifted. Like the earth cracked, but I stayed standing. I replied with 4 words, "Sure. Enjoy your special day. No emotion, no argument, just quiet withdrawal." I closed the laptop, drank the cold coffee, got ready for work like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. That was the day I stopped pretending my sacrifices meant anything. The drive to work was quiet. Oregon's spring air still carried a chill, but I barely noticed. How did we get here? I've worked at Carter and Fields Law for 18 years, and it's not glamorous, but it's stable. After my husband died suddenly, stability mattered. My kids were still teens. I remember standing in front of the old washing machine, bills scattered across the counter, trying to figure out how to pay for groceries and Nicole's college deposit. I never hesitated. Gave up weekends, picked up extra shifts, skipped vacations, skipped birthdays, told myself I'd have time for me later. There never was. Every dollar I saved went to Nicole and Aaron. When Nicole changed majors twice and needed more credits, I paid. When she moved across the country, I helped with the deposit and her plane ticket. When she cried through her second breakup at 27, I flew out, held her hand, made tea in a kitchen that didn't feel like mine. When Aaron bought a house with his partner, I co-signed the mortgage and handed over a $10,000 check. I never kept score. Because that's what mothers do, right? But that email, it felt like a receipt. Like my shelf life had expired. At the office, my boss Robert stopped by. He's one of the good ones. Remembers birthdays. Knows how I take my coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, setting a latte on my desk. I wanted to tell him that my daughter had just uninvited me from her wedding. But instead, I smiled, told him I didn't sleep well. He didn't push. That simple kindness, coffee, and silence undid me. Amid all the noise in my head, it reminded me I still existed, that I still mattered, even if quietly. At lunch, my phone vibrated. Nicole, again, voicemails, texts, "Mom, please respond. We need to talk. This isn't funny." I didn't answer. I just sat there, sipped my espresso, and I thought, maybe it's time to stop always answering. Maybe it's time to stop playing the supporting role in someone else's story when they won't even let you on stage. That afternoon, I made a choice. I didn't go straight home after work. I drove to First Union Bank. Just a few blocks away, Carlos, the branch manager, greeted me like always. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Walker. I need to cancel a wire transfer." I said, calmly. He blinked. "The one for the Napa venue? Yes, that one. There may be cancellation fees," he said carefully. "May I ask why the terms have changed?" He typed something. "Check the system." "You're lucky. It hasn't processed yet." Just in time. He looked at me again. "Are you sure, Mrs. Walker?" It's $50,000, I nodded. I'm sure? $50,000, that was what I was going to send on top of the $30,000 I already gave. $80,000 for a wedding I wasn't invited to? I signed the papers, left the bank, didn't look back. When I got home, I had 9 missed calls from Nicole, 2 from Aaron. One voicemail said, "Mom, please, don't do this." I turned off my phone. In the kitchen, I reached for a bottle of red wine I'd been saving for Thanksgiving. I didn't open it then. Nicole was supposed to come. She'd canceled last minute, said she had work. I poured a glass, sat on the porch, watched the sunset. Birds chirped. A dog barked in the distance. And the memories came. All the birthdays I planned alone, holiday dinners where I pretended I wasn't waiting for a call, the new shoes I didn't buy, the old car I drove for 14 years, the trips I never took. I thought about Daniel's mother, who barely knew Nicole, but whose opinion mattered more than mine. And I thought about Nicole, about how she ended her email with LOL, as if watching my daughter's wedding through a screen was a joke. And finally, I thought about me, not as a mother, not as a widow, just as a woman. What did I want? Peace, dignity, a life that didn't revolve around being useful to people who only showed up when they needed something. That night, around 9 p.m., the doorbell rang. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was Aaron, still in his work clothes, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked uncomfortable, held his phone like a shield. "Mom," he said, stepping inside. "Why aren't you answering your phone? Nicole's freaking out." I shut the door, calmly. "Hello to you too. She says you're not coming to the wedding, that you're being difficult." I laughed. Difficult for not going to a wedding I was uninvited from. He shifted. "Daniel's parents are traditional. You're paying for most of it. You understand how that looks." I raised an eyebrow. "I already gave $30,000. I was going to give $50,000 more. That's not tradition. That's a transaction." His eyes widened. "Wait, another 50?" I nodded. Mom, they're counting on it. The venue, the food, not my problem anymore." His voice rose. "Of course it's your problem. She's your daughter, and I'm her mother," I said quietly. "A mother who was told to stay home and watch from a screen." He ran a hand through his hair. "You always make things about yourself." That was it. The moment something inside me finally let go. "Get out." "What? You heard me. Get out." "No, Mom," I said it firmer. "I gave everything I had, and I'm done being the villain in a story I wrote with love." Aaron stood there for a second, then turned, walked out. The door clicked behind him. It sounded louder than any slam. I stood in the middle of my living room, my heart beating fast, not from panic, but from something else. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, I woke up to 43 missed calls, a string of messages from Nicole. They started soft. "Mom, we need to talk." Then guilt. "Why are you doing this to me?" Then panic. "The venue just called. The payment didn't go through. We'll lose everything. Daniel's parents are furious. They said this proves they were right about you." At 3:24 a.m., she wrote, "I don't understand." "Why are you doing this to me?" I smiled. Of course she didn't understand. Nicole and I had grown up together. My sacrifices were built into her life. The comforts, the safety, that was my job. She never questioned where it all came from, never asked what it cost. She just assumed it would always be there, that I would always be there, but not anymore. Later that morning, while I was reviewing contracts at work, a new email popped up. Subject line, "Please don't ruin my wedding." I opened it. She wrote, "Mom, I know you're upset about the live stream. It wasn't meant to hurt you, but now things are serious. We lost the venue deposit. If we don't pay the balance by end of day Paris time, the caterer walks. Daniel's parents are really upset. They say this shows you can't be counted on. Please don't do this. We can talk about you attending, but we need the money first." There it was. They'd consider letting me attend. Now that the money was gone, no apology, no reflection, just a negotiation. As if my presence at my own daughter's wedding could be bought, bartered, traded. I didn't reply, just closed the email. Went back to work. Around lunch, Robert came by my desk. Lunch, he asked. That new Italian place just opened? I almost said no. I always say no. But something shifted. Maybe it was the clarity of the last 24 hours. Maybe I just wanted to sit somewhere that didn't ask anything of me. I nodded. I'd like that. Over pasta. He told me stories about his grandkids, how exhausting but wonderful it was chasing them around. Then he paused, his voice quiet. Forgive me, Diane, but you seem lighter today. I surprised myself. I told him everything. The email, the money, the wedding, my decision. When I finished, he didn't judge, didn't try to fix anything. He just said, sometimes the hardest part of love is setting boundaries, especially with the people we've given the most. He reached across the table, squeezed my hand. I think you did the right thing. And for the first time in years, I believed it too. When I got back to my desk, more missed calls, more texts. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My silence said enough. That evening, as I pulled into the driveway, the sun was just starting to fade, porch light blinked on, everything looked still. But someone was sitting on my front steps. As I got closer, I saw who it was. Samantha, Nicole's best friend since 5th grade. She jumped up when she saw me, brushed invisible lint from her coat. Hi, Mrs. Walker, she said. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. It's okay, I said, unlocking the door. Want some tea? She nodded, followed me inside. Her eyes scanned the familiar kitchen walls, like they still held echoes of sleepovers and cookie nights. I put the kettle on. Nicole sent you, I asked eventually. She hesitated. They lost the venue. The florist backed out. Daniel's parents are threatening to cancel the whole thing. I said nothing. Placed 2 mugs on the counter. She's panicking. Samantha continued. She realizes she made a mistake. She doesn't know how to fix it. Is that why you're here? I asked. To fix it, she shook her head. I'm here to ask. Is there anything she can say to change your mind? I paused. Would an apology undo what it felt like to be excluded, to be treated like an ATM, to be told I wasn't welcome? Unless I came with cash, I looked at Samantha. Still young, still hopeful. There isn't, I said gently. Her shoulders sagged. I'm sorry, she said. You don't need to be. We stood there, 2 women from different generations, bound by one hard truth. Sometimes love has limits. Sometimes the only way to be heard is to stop speaking. Samantha didn't argue. She didn't plead. She just picked up her tea, hugged me softly, then walked back into the night. I closed the door, not just to her, to an old version of myself. The wedding didn't happen. Not like they planned. They scrambled for a new venue, but it was too late. Everything was booked. Or way too expensive. In the end, just like Aaron predicted, they held a backyard ceremony. Small, quiet, a few relatives, Daniel's parents. I wasn't invited. And for once, I didn't want to be. A few weeks later, Nicole sent one final email. Long, emotional, part apology, part justification. I read it once, then archived it. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. There's a strange peace in letting go, not out of spite, but out of understanding. For the first time in decades, I woke up without wondering who needed something from me. Without bracing for another guilt trip disguised as affection, I set a new rule for myself. If my presence can be negotiated, then so can my effort. I go to work. I read books. I took a pottery class. I eat dinner with friends who see me not just what I can give. And I've learned something I wish I'd known sooner. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes, the strongest kind of love is the kind you finally give to yourself. That Saturday morning, I went to the farmer's market. I hadn't done that in years. Picked up fresh peaches, homemade bread, a bunch of wildflowers, just because they made me smile. There was no rush, no phone vibrating with someone else's emergencies, no calendar packed with obligations that weren't mine. I walked slowly, smiled at strangers, bought honey from a man who looked like Santa Claus and told me he'd been bottling it since 1974. It felt like reclaiming something, like I was stepping back into a version of myself I'd long forgotten, one that laughed easily, one that moved through the world without apologizing for existing. Later that day, I cleaned out my closet, tossed old sweaters I never wore, shoes that hurt my feet, photos that reminded me of birthdays spent alone. I found a shoebox buried in the back. Inside, Mother's Day cards from Nicole. Some were handmade, crayon hearts and crooked letters. I love you, Mommy. Others had neat cursive and pressed flowers taped to the corners. Each one told a different version of a little girl who loved her mom more than anything. I sat on the floor, let them rest in my lap, let myself remember that little girl was real, and so was the love. But somewhere along the way, the balance shifted. Somewhere, I became less of a person and more of a provider, a permanent fixture. And assumed yes, I wasn't angry at her anymore. I just missed the girl who used to draw me stars and write, "You're my hero," the one who didn't laugh when she told me I wouldn't be at her wedding. I put the cards back in the box, but I didn't put them back in the closet. I left them out, a reminder of what was real. Not for guilt, for grace. The next day, Aaron called. I didn't answer. Instead, he left a voicemail. "Hey, Mom, just wanted to check in. No pressure. I've been thinking about everything. Maybe we could grab lunch this week. Just talk." His voice was quieter, slower, less sure. I played it twice, then saved it. I wasn't ready to call back yet, but I wasn't closing the door, either. That afternoon, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. Same chair, same breeze, but it felt different now. There wasn't a weight in my chest, no tightness in my shoulders, just air, just space, and me. Around sunset, the mail arrived, a thick cream-colored envelope, my name written in silver script. The return address, Daniel and Nicole. I already knew what it was. Curiosity got the best of me. Inside, an invitation. It wasn't formal. It wasn't for the wedding. It was for a celebration of love and new beginnings at their house, backyard barbecue. "Hope you'll come." It ended. "We miss you." No RSVP deadline, no demands, just a quiet ask. I set it on the kitchen counter. Didn't throw it away. Didn't accept it, either. Just let it sit there. Like they finally understood that my time, my presence was not a given. It was a gift. Later that week, Robert poked his head into my office again. "Pottery class." "Huh," he teased, grinning. "Should I be worried about flying clay?" I laughed. "Only if you sit in the front row." He leaned against the doorframe. "You seem good. Like really good." "I am," I said, surprised by how true it felt. "Want to grab lunch again? Only if it's your treat." "Deal." We walked to the little deli down the block, shared a booth, shared stories. This time, I didn't talk about Nicole or Aaron or the wedding. I talked about me, the book I was reading, the glaze I picked for my pottery bowl, the way the roses in my yard were finally blooming. I saw the way his eyes crinkled when he listened. And it hit me. This is what it's supposed to feel like. Connection. Conversation. No debt attached. Just presence. Later, back at my desk, I opened my calendar, blocked off the weekend. No errands, no favors, just me time. I smiled. A small victory, but real. The kind that matters. That evening, I cooked dinner, not just toast or frozen soup, real food, grilled salmon, roasted carrots, a glass of white wine, set the table, lit a candle, a place setting for one, and it didn't feel lonely. It felt full. I turned on the radio. Frank Sinatra, The Way You Look Tonight. I hummed along, swirled the wine in my glass, and thought, this, this is what peace tastes like. The freedom of not waiting for a phone to ring, the calm of not checking emails for emotional landmines. I took a bite, savored it, closed my eyes, and let it be enough, because it was. The next morning, I opened my eyes before the alarm. The house was quiet, just the soft hum of the fridge, the ticking wall clock, the chirp of early spring birds beyond the window. For once, my first thought wasn't about anyone else, not about who needed money, or help, or a ride to the airport. My mind felt still. I pulled on my robe, walked into the kitchen, brewed a fresh pot of coffee strong, black, just the way I liked it. No one to sweeten it for, no one to serve first, just me. I sat at the table and opened my journal. It had been months since I'd written anything, but now, the words came easily. I am not angry, I wrote. I am not bitter, I am tired, but waking up. And then, without even meaning to, I scribbled it down, I matter. 3 simple words, but they shook something loose. Later that day, I went for a walk in the park. Oregon spring was soft, damp earth, bright blossoms, air just cool enough to remind you it hadn't been long since winter. Children laughed near the swings. A couple walked their dog. Life moved on. And so was I. I sat on a bench beneath a maple tree, pulled out my phone. Dozens of unread messages still blinked in my inbox. Nicole's name appeared again and again, but there was one I hadn't seen before. Aaron. Subject line, Mom. I'm sorry. I opened it. Hey, Mom. I've been thinking a lot since that night. About what I said. About what you've always done for us. I guess I never stopped to really see it. I just assumed you'd always be there. Like gravity. Like oxygen. But now I see you pull double duty all these years, parent, provider, peacekeeper. And you didn't ask for anything in return. I should have said this a long time ago. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, let it sink in, not because I needed to hear it, but because I deserved to. I didn't reply right away, not out of spite, just because I wanted to feel the moment, let it sit there, undemanding, truthful. I put my phone away, watched the light filter through the branches above. A boy ran past, laughing, a paper airplane in his hand. I smiled. That evening, I got a text from my neighbor, Claire. She was hosting a game night. Just us girls, she wrote. Snacks, wine, and terrible card shuffling. I almost said no, almost curled up with my book instead. But then I thought, why not? Why not laugh with people who see me not as a bank, not as a crutch, just as me? So I went. Claire greeted me with a hug and a plastic tiara. Queen Diane. She joked, your throne awaits. We laughed all night, played games badly, ate too much cheese, drank just enough wine. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to perform. I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just present. That Sunday, I spent the morning gardening, pulled weeds, planted petunias, got dirt under my nails, and didn't care. The sun warmed my shoulders. My playlist played Sinatra again. It felt right. Around noon, I took a break, checked my email. There it was, a second message from Nicole. This time, no subject line, just her name. I hesitated, then clicked. Hi, Mom. I know I messed up. I don't even know where to start. You've always been there. Always. And I guess I thought, you always would be, no matter how I treated you. That's not fair. And it's not love. You deserve to be at my wedding. You deserved a seat, not a screen. But I let other people's opinions matter more than your presence. I let convenience become cruelty. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm asking you to please try. Not because I need your money, but because I need my mom. Love, Nicole. I sat with it, let the silence in the house stretch. I wasn't angry. I wasn't rushing to reply. I just let her words breathe, because they were finally hers. Not transactional, not conditional, just real. And for the first time in months, I considered something I hadn't before. Maybe this wasn't an end. Maybe it was a beginning, but it had to be on new terms, with boundaries, with honesty, with me, fully seen, fully heard, fully human. Monday morning, I wore my favorite earrings, small silver hoops, a gift I bought myself 5 years ago and never wore because I always told myself I didn't need to be flashy. But now, I wanted to be seen. Not for anyone else, for me, at the office. Robert passed my desk, coffee in hand. He paused. "Those are new," he said, nodding at my ears. "Not really." I smiled. "I just decided today was the right day." He grinned. "Looks like the right decision." It was around lunchtime. Aaron called again. This time, I picked up. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Aaron." A long pause. "I wasn't sure you'd answer. I wasn't sure I would either. I meant what I said in the email," he added quietly. "Every word." "I know," I said. "Thank you." Another pause. "I'd love to take you out to dinner sometime. Just us. No expectations. No speeches." I considered it. "You paying," he laughed. "Absolutely. Then I'll think about it." "Fair." Before we hung up, he said it again. "I love you." And this time, I didn't have to dig to believe it. That night, I lit a candle in the living room, the soft kind with the smell of vanilla and cedar, something gentle, something warm. I curled up with a book and a blanket and let myself rest. Not because I'd earned it through effort, not because I was recovering from another crisis, just because I deserved rest. I deserved peace, and I was finally giving it to myself. A few days later, another envelope arrived in the mail. No stamps, hand-delivered. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Nicole's handwriting. Thicker, a little messier than I remembered. "Mom, I know this doesn't fix anything. I know trust is slow, but I want to try. No strings, no checks, no expectations. Just coffee. Next Friday, 10 a.m. That little cafe you used to love. If you don't show up, I'll understand. If you do, I'll be grateful. No begging, no LOL. Just an invitation. And this time, it wasn't to her wedding. It was to a conversation. A place to start. I set the letter on the table, put a small stone on top so it wouldn't blow away when I opened the window. That Friday, I showed up, wore the earrings again, sat by the window. Ordered my usual. Nicole walked in 5 minutes late, looking smaller than I remembered. Not younger, just less sure. She saw me, paused, then walked over. We didn't hug, not yet. We just sat, two women with shared history, and a new map in our hands. She didn't say much at first, neither did I. But that was okay, because sometimes silence isn't a punishment. Sometimes it's a beginning. After coffee, we walked a few blocks, talked about the trees blooming too early, the way the world keeps going. Before we said goodbye, she stopped. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know," I said, and I did. I didn't forgive her for everything that moment, but I forgave myself for staying quiet for too long. In the weeks that followed, life didn't snap back into something perfect. There were still distance and awkward pauses, but there was also effort, real effort. Nicole came by one weekend with a new candle, lavender and sage. "Thought you'd like this," she said, leaving it on the porch with a note. Aaron called weekly, not to ask, just to talk, and I kept living. I finished my pottery bowl. It came out crooked, a little lopsided on one side. I loved it anyway. Signed my name at the bottom, set it in the center of the table, a reminder of all things made new. A few months later, I took myself on a trip, just me, a little bed and breakfast by the coast, walks on the beach, lemon pie at a diner with red booths, a dog that followed me for 2 days like he'd known me in another life. And one morning, as I stood with my toes in the sand, coffee warming my hand and wind tugging at my scarf, I closed my eyes. I let everything fall away. The labels, the guilt, the fear of not being enough. And I said out loud, just for me, I'm still here, still standing, still soft, still strong. And finally not waiting to be chosen, because I had chosen myself. And if you've ever been where I was, if you've ever poured yourself dry for people who handed you empty cups in return, if you've ever sat through silence so long it began to sound like truth, then I hope you know this. You don't owe anyone your light, not if they only show up when they need to be warm. Let go. Set boundaries. Draw lines and stand behind them. Love? Yes, but not at the cost of yourself. Because sometimes the strongest kind of love is the kind you finally give to yourself. And that kind never leaves you.